Hi there. Long time no see. It is December 27th, and my house is very quiet. It's very dark and cold and icy outside, and I'm just sitting here in my office doing crafts. And I thought, you know what, let's sit and have a little chat while I'm doing this. And I wanted to talk about, I finally finished Harvest Home. It took me 3 months to read this book. And my feelings about the book are still kind of nebulous, I guess. I can't quite make up my mind on whether or not I loved it or just kind of liked it. Then here's the thing. I really liked the story. I really liked all the peripheral characters. Like, really and truly, I did. Where I'm having trouble is I hated the main character, Ned Constantine. And it wasn't something that happened like in the moment or anything like that. Because if you know what I'm talking about, if you've read the book, you'll know why I might have a problem with him at one point. The thing is, I mean, I'd already disliked him by the time we got to that. I disliked him like 20 pages in. He's very, as a character, he's very wishy-washy as a person. Everything is seen through his lens, through his preconceived notions, his biases, and things like that. And it's not that you can't blame him for being judgy about some of the things that he sees and hears. It's that, I'm sorry, I was not coughing before I started this. It's that even in the beginning, he's judgmental of everybody. He's judgmental about his wife. He's judgmental about his daughter. In really stupid ways, too, that frustrated me. Because Ned Constantine thinks he's a great guy. He thinks his intentions should be the end-all be-all of any judgment you have of him. And something about that just rubs me the wrong way. And I don't think should be any big mystery why that bugs the hell out of me. But the thing is like there's a scene in the very beginning of the story where he's in bed with his wife. And he's looking over at her, and he's counting his blessings. I'm such a lucky man. Look at her. I'm such a lucky man. But, oh, she's looking old. Oh, I'm such a lucky man. I'm such a lucky man. But she's not really passionate. She doesn't do anything with passion. It's things like that. And his daughter is another thing. You know, his daughter is very asthmatic. Like, the really, really bad kind of asthmatic. And she needs an emergency inhaler. She frequently goes to the hospital for her condition. She's she has a serious illness. She has a serious problem. And he's complaining about, he goes down to breakfast and he knows she's coming. And he's like, oh, she's going to come down with her teenager problems. And it's revealed later that it's whether or not she feels good that day. Because sometimes she doesn't, and it's like, Ned, the fuck is your problem, man? So in the very beginning, I started like, I don't like this guy. And I would put the book down, and the next day, nice open window to sit and do some reading. I didn't want to pick it up again. And I would go a week or two without reading again. And then I would force myself, like, come on, we got to finish this. Let's at least get into the story before we make a real judgment. Because I don't love doing I do not finish. I do them occasionally. I do. But it's really got to be getting on my nerves for me to just straight up say, I can't do this. And I eventually got far enough to where I was really into the story, really into the scenery, and really into the side characters. Like, the story takes place in this place called Cornwall Coombe. And this is a folk horror story. It takes a while for the horror to start really checking in. There's just a lot of storytelling, a lot of city mouse in the country trying to adjust, a lot of that. And the thing is the author, how do you pronounce his last name? Is it Tryon or is it Tryon? Thomas Tryon? I seriously, when I don't know how to pronounce something, it gives me night sweats. And I know I'm going to be sitting here talking about it and it kills me. But this book is very sensual in that, don't think sexual, think it's very deep on all the senses. It talks a lot about the senses, like the way the writing is done. You're there. I feel like I could drive around this place and I would know where I'm going. I feel like I know what all those cornfields look like. Cornfields are a big deal in this story. And they're just little things, little tastes of what is going on, what the scenery is like, what the people are like, that despite the fact that I hate the main character, the narrator of the story, I got sucked in. Like, I really loved those characters. I really loved Worthy, the boy. I really loved the Widow Fortune. It was all very interesting. And I would be doing okay. I would be into it and be doing okay. And then Ned would do something. He would have some sort of just inner thought that got on my nerves, and I'd be like, I'm going to stop for the day. And then again, I wouldn't pick it up again for like a week. And I'm struggling because here's the thing. I'm not sure whether or not the author intended for me to dislike Ned, because there's stuff in the book that points to, yeah, this was part of the plan. You're not supposed to like this guy. But there's also stuff in the book that says, no, you're supposed to like him and you're supposed to feel some sort of way about what ultimately ends up happening to him. And I'm going to be careful about spoilers. I don't want to ruin this for anybody that hasn't read it, because I'm talking about it right now because I do ultimately recommend it. I do ultimately think, if you've never read this book, Harvest Home, I do think you should read it, especially if you like folk horror. Even though this one, boy, it got weird on you. It's a very slow burn. You're 200 plus pages into the thing before stuff really starts picking up. It's a very slow, these people are backwards, these people are weird, but in a charming, quaint kind of way. And because you know what you're reading, you know you're reading a book where things are going to go seriously sideways. You know that there's something coming. You don't let yourself become comfortable in the story. And when it does happen, it's very late in the book. And I think because of that slow burn aspect of it all, I didn't see some of it coming. I'm not someone who always can predict what's going on, but I've read enough books that I know the tropes. I know when something is going a certain way. I do. And I did figure out Ned's ending. Didn't figure it out, I suspected, during one particular scene before it actually happened. And because I didn't like him as a character, because I didn't relate to him really, I ended up feeling kind of nothing for what ended up happening to him. I didn't feel pity. I didn't really feel sad. There is a horror element to it where but no, I didn't feel anything. And I ended up, the reason why I'm sitting here doing this long talk with you is because I've got to talk about a book that is usually verboten in my house unless I'm talking about something I hate, and that's The Howling. I ended up feeling like there were a lot of parallels between this book and The Howling. Now, Harvest Home came out in 1973, and The Howling came out in 1977, 4 years later. I don't believe that Gary Brandner borrowed aspects of The Howling from this book. It's possible, I suppose. I don't think so. It's one of those things that just kind of happens, and it's not a huge deal. But I kept getting like flashbacks to reading The Howling, reading this. Like, in The Howling, the main character's husband is a really shitty person. And back when the book was written, I don't think your average reader was supposed to see this guy as a really shitty person. You were supposed to be sympathetic to him and his struggles and his loss of affection with his wife being traumatized. And a modern eye reads it very differently than the audience it was written for in its time, ultimately. And I felt that way with this, with Ned, who is a shitty person. He's shown to be a shitty person. Even if maybe the author didn't mean for it to happen that way, he is shown to be a shitty person. Like, okay, Cornwall Coombe is this folksy, throwback kind of place. It's a farming community. It's small. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows each other's business. And there are strange ways. There are things people won't talk about. There is a mystery of certain characters. Like, why is this person buried outside of the church cemetery? And what's the big secret there? Things like that. But Ned is... he comes into town. He and his wife were living in New York City. And Cornwall Coombe is in upstate New York. He and his wife lived in New York City. He worked for an advertising firm. And it's kind of sucking the life out of him. Fair enough. Move to the country. Become an artist. He has a talent and an eye. And he moves out to the country because there's all kinds of not motivation, but inspiration there. Beautiful bridges, barns, things like that he can paint. And it becomes his work. They buy a house. He makes a studio out of an old chicken coop, I think. And it's all very quaint and adorable. But this town, despite where I live, there are a lot of Mennonites and Amish. So I was continually picturing that kind of aesthetic in my mind, thinking about Cornwall Coombe. And I'm not totally off, actually, by the way they're described. But I'm not totally correct either. But there is a sort of throwback difference to these people. But having said that, there is the town horny girl in Cornwall Coombe. And she works at the post office. She's the postmistress of the town. And she makes eyes for Ned pretty much the second he pulls into town. And Ned, who is so sure of himself as a good guy, so sure of himself as a lucky man with his passionless wife, says he's not interested. He says that in his mind. I'm not interested. No, thank you. I'm happily married. But then, like, they would be at, like, a town function where she's off doing her own thing and he's noticing her body under her flowing dress, checking out her boobs, checking out her butt, and having thoughts, not graphic, not even honest thoughts, just where he's noticing because he knows that she's the town horny girl. And she's not even a girl. She's a mature woman. She has a child. And it grossed me out because, again, he's so sure of himself as a good guy. He's so sure of himself as someone in the right. But I won't get too much into it because, again, I don't want to spoil anything. But he's not a good guy. No matter how much he believes it, no matter how much he is so sure of his own motivations, he's lying to himself. He's deluding himself. He's not a good guy. And when he's called out on it, and he is eventually called out on it, he's so offended. he's incredulous that someone has the nerve to think him anything less than a saint. And he's a more extreme example of the main character's husband in The Howling, but there's that very similar play being acted out there with the town horny girl and the husband being being helpless against her wiles. I mean, at least in The Howling, you know, his traumatized wife, and I can't stress that enough, traumatized. She was horribly attacked in the beginning of the book, horribly harmed during that attack, so much so that she lost her pregnancy during the fact, and her husband not long after is already making sexual demands of her, and it's gross, and I hated it. I hate it now. Ned isn't quite that nakedly bad. A lot of the ways he's bad is in his mind and in his delusions of what a good guy he is. I thought it was funny about the town horny girl. We have to always have one of those, I suppose. Another thing that was a parallel to The Howling was in revealing how much of the town was in on the big secret. And honestly, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see exactly what the big secret was, because the old ways are pushed in a way that they're couched in Christianity. It's folksy, you know. It's very familiar to me from where I grew up, where everybody goes to church, but they believe some things that outside of that area, maybe religious people wouldn't approve of. So when it turned out to be non-Christian elements to some of the things that they believed, I was surprised. But there are characters in this story who seem to be not necessarily part of the folksiness. Not everybody in this town is like that. There are other outsiders. They're not the only outsiders, Ned and his family. There are others. And oh my God, this book is giving me such a hard time. There are other outsiders, and it's when that reveal is made, it's shocking. I was absolutely very surprised. I did not see that coming. Not from a mile away. I was completely taken aback. And it's pleasant when that happens. It's always fun. And that's why, I'm struggling with this, because the writing is fantastic. The story is good. I just hated that main character. And I'm struggling because I'm not sure if it was on purpose or not. I kind of wish I knew, but I kind of want to keep it open so that I'm sitting and kind of wrestling with it, because if I buy that Ned Constantine is the good guy he believes himself to be, there's a very distinct descent. There's a downward spiral that happens with him because of this town and because of certain mysteries that he's chasing. But if he is the piece of crap that I believed him to be by page 20, then it's almost like not quite, it's extreme, but it's almost like just desserts, because sympathy and pity didn't happen for me, at all. And it's ultimately, it was a satisfying read, and the ending was surprising, while also I saw some of it coming, but some of it I really didn't. I was just whoa, that came from 15 degrees in another direction. I didn't see that coming. And I don't think I'm going to post this. This is shit. Okay, hi again. Sorry about that little meltdown. I gotta look at myself in my screen and gave myself the boogies, and yes, we are again struggling with the having people look at me thing. I don't want to talk about it. So I shouldn't have brought it up, huh? But so we're talking about, I hated Ned Constantine. I liked the story. I hated Ned. And I was also kind of triggered by the parallels between Harvest Home and The Howling, which, because if you have been here for a while, you know my feelings about The Howling. The thing is, another thing, I suppose, I think that there was, it's like the lightning rod of this story is the Widow Fortune. The lightning rod of this story is not the narrator, the main character, and it's not even who you think it's going to be in the beginning. I thought Worthy was going to end up being more of a focal point of change than he ended up being. And then I thought maybe Ned's daughter was going to be. And no, it's this character that is steady throughout the whole story, the Widow Fortune. And she's interesting, like endlessly interesting. She's almost an enigma in and of herself. She's mysterious. And the things about her that are mysterious, most of them are explained, and it does happen kind of suddenly. And it's not that that's not satisfying to read. It actually was. And I don't want to disparage this book for being a slow burn either, because I actually like slow burn books when they're written well, which this one is, when the scenery is as lush and well described as this one is. There's nothing wrong with this book being a slow burn. It just felt like, it felt like the first 2/3 of this book was a bit of a Sisyphean task. Like you're rolling a boulder uphill. It's very slow. It's very arduous. Not in a bad way though. So my words aren't working so well tonight. But then you reach the top and we're no longer Sisyphus. The boulder's just going to go whee, and it happens very fast. When the boulder starts rolling downhill, it's very fast. Things go to hell real quick in this book. And the discovering of the big mysteries and the discovering of, like, Harvest Home is the name of one of the many festivals that Carnwalcombe has. And most of them are very quaint. Most of them they happen in the town square, and people set up little booths and sell quilts, and they talk about what's going on in the town. And it's all very adorable and quaint. But Harvest Home is the one where only the women are involved in it, and no men are allowed, no outsiders allowed, and we don't talk about it. And finding out what it is, again, I was actually surprised. I did not see it coming to that extent. I thought it was going to be something slightly different. This wasn't in a completely different solar system than what I was picturing, but it was different enough for where I was like, oh, color me surprised, which is always delightful when that happens. I just, whoa, this book was good. It was good despite Ned. And I wish, no, I don't. No, we're going to quit saying that. Ned, whether he was meant to be a bastard or not, made it a difficult read only in that I didn't want to keep going back into his head. I didn't enjoy some parts of him. Now, because he is an artist, and because he has that eye and he has an eye for detail, there were things that he would discuss and things that he would describe that were interesting. But then, I don't know, there were other things about him I just found gross, and I really didn't like him, and it made it hard to read. But that might just be a me thing. Not liking him, I do think, especially once stuff starts rolling downhill, and he does experience a loss of certain morals and integrity, and I think that's on purpose. You're supposed to see him differently. I don't know if you're meant to see him a certain way from the beginning, but definitely by a certain point in this book, you are looking at him differently. He is not the good guy he believes himself to be. And yeah. I do recommend this book. I do think it was worth the time. I wish I just sucked it up and read it faster, because the payoff was ultimately worth all of the "I hate you, Ned" that I was saying to the book as I was reading it. Let me see. Okay, I mentioned before, we are in December 27th. I will come back in early January and talk about my favorite books of 2025. And maybe next year we'll keep doing on the same, talking about interesting books that I read. I'm not ready for a theme yet. Another Year of the Werewolf. I may do one, maybe 2027. We'll see. But I'm not ready to commit to that again quite yet. I've got, now that I'm editing, I've got editing responsibilities, and I want to put out another book this year. That's one of my goals. So we're going to work towards that, and we'll just keep talking books as they come. I know I was gone for a few months there, struggling with the, having people look at me thing, but I was also sick. I hosted Thanksgiving dinner, spiking a fever and coughing my face off, but nobody else got sick. So I was able to at least keep it under wraps, and we had a successful dinner. And then, I don't know, this time of year always feels kind of overwhelming. Like, I know Christmas is over, and, the kids got their presents. We had a really nice Christmas, but I still kind of feel, I don't get that this is the relaxing time between the holidays, and I'll feel better once we get back on routine, once the kids are back in school and we're doing our normal days again. I'll feel a little bit better, because this is just kind of knocking me out of my rhythm. I'm someone who very much needs that. But I think we'll continue next year. Unless you have any ideas, let me know. But I want to thank you for showing up and listening to my nonsense, putting up with my idiosyncrasies. And I'm so happy you're here. And also, again, in just a few days, I'll post another one talking about my favorite books, because I do have a book I haven't talked about yet that I read that I really want to talk about. I really want to recommend, because it knocked my socks off. But if you have books that you read that you thought were awesome, let me know. Talk about it. And I'll see you in a couple weeks. So thanks for always being here. Thanks for talking books with me. Bye. Happy New Year.